All right, guys, this is what you're going to work on. This will be a grade, a separate grade. This is going to be me kind of explaining a couple of the problems in the section, and then you have the remaining of the class period to get it done. So in this worksheet, you're going to have to start off with using your point slope form to set up the equation. So our point slope form, this is when we have y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. So we need a point, and our point, let me just, is basically the x1 and the y1, and we need the slope, and our slope is the m in the point slope form. So like I said, I'm just going to go a couple from each section, kind of remind you of some shortcuts. Use your flip book that we finished on Friday to help you. There's some steps in there, especially when you get to problem 7 through 14. For writing lines, equations for parallel and perpendicular lines. So I'm going to start with number 2 here to kind of explain and make sure you have an understanding. We have the point, let me get that, -5, -3, so that's our x1 and our y1. And our slope is the -3/5. That represents the m. So this is our m. So I'm just kind of show the setup, just kind of so you can get an idea of how you're going to write this. So point slope form, this is when we do y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. So we're going to take our value for x1, which is this -5, and plug it inside the parentheses. And then this -3 represents our y1. That goes right here in front of the equal sign. And then our slope, this -3/5, that's going to go in place of m in front of the parentheses. So this is going to end up, let me get my font right. This is going to be y. Instead of saying minus a -3, it actually turns into +3. It is going to equal to our slope, the -3/5. So -3/5 for m, then parentheses x, and we're going to have +5. And I kind of just color code so you can see what I substitute, what parts I substitute into the formula. So once you plug it in, we have to write this equation in slope-intercept form. So in order to do that, to get it to slope-intercept form, this is when we solve for y in our steps on our last page. We're going to have to first distribute. Okay, so this is going to be y plus 3 equals a -3/5 x, and this is going to turn into -3. And then we're just going to solve for y. So to solve for y, we would have to subtract 3 on both sides. So the final answer, the final equation is y equals a -3/5 x minus 6. I'm going to box that. And that's what we're going to get. So, but I'm going to check your steps here. I'm just going to kind of make sure when I'm checking that I see that you plugged into the point slope form correctly, that you distributed correctly, and that you solved for y correctly. Okay. So now on the next section, so this is just plugging in. 1 through 3 is just plugging in. But when you get to 4 through 6, because we need the slope here, we need to first find the slope. And in order to find the m, the slope, you're going to have to do y2 minus y1. Use the slope formula x2 minus x1. So we can just, oops, sorry. Go away. There we go. We can go ahead and just substitute our y2 and y1. So this would be -1 minus 4 all over 6 minus 1. So you can do the operation for the top if you're not sure. Let me get out of here. Like we said, this is our -1 minus 4. That's a -5. And then we have our 6 minus 1, which is +5. So I can do that one. We could do them all. Or you can do alpha y equals, hit enter to create your fraction box. Put the actual slope formula. So on the top, we have our -1 minus 4. And then on the bottom, we had our 6 minus 1. And this reduces to a -1 slope, okay? Because we had -5 over 5. So m, I'm going to change my font here. M is going to equal -1. That's our slope. Now we need a point. So it really doesn't matter which point you plug it in, but we usually use the first point to represent our x1 and our y1. So when I plug this into point slope form, this is going to be y minus 4 equals my negative 1 for m, parentheses x minus 1. And they still want this in slope-intercept form, so we're still going to distribute. So we have y minus 4 equals a negative x plus 1. And then we are going to add 4 to both sides, and we get y equals negative x plus 5. So if you use a different point, you should still get to this final equation, okay? So the key for this section is first use your slope-intercept form. First use the slope formula, then plug it into the point slope form. So even like on a problem like 6 here, you have to start off finding that slope by doing negative 1 minus 14 over 6 minus negative 12. Okay, so hopefully here your slope is actually going to be a fraction. It is going to simplify into a negative 5, 6. Now we're just putting it into point slope form. Pick a point, plug it in, distribute, solve for y. All right, so then when we get into 7 through 14, we can still use the same steps, but you got to remember the key facts, characteristics to each type of line. So like if I'm talking about a parallel line, okay, we're talking about the same slope. So if it's in slope-intercept form, let me just change this font. The slope is what's in front of x. When it's we can only do that when it's in mx plus b form. Okay, so the m is in front of the x. So something like this, I already see that 3 is my slope, and then there's our x1 and y1. There's our point. We're plugging it in, following basically the steps in our flip book. Now, on Friday we talked about a shortcut here. If it's in standard form, so this is saying ax plus by equals c. To get the slope in standard form, all we have to do is negative a over b. So hopefully we see that our a is the 2 here. Make that better circle. A is 2, our b is 5. So when I substitute this in, it will be negative 2 over 5. That is the slope. And for the parallel, it's going to be the same slope. So now I can just take this slope and the given point that it has to go through, negative 10, 1, and plug it into point slope form. So this would turn into y minus 1 equals to negative 2/5, parentheses x plus 10. Here we're just going to distribute and then solve for y, because they want them each of the equations in slope-intercept form. So if I have y minus 1 equals negative 2/5 x, this is going to be minus 4. Then to solve for y, we're going to add 1 to both sides. I'm going to come over here to the side. Y equals a negative 2/5 x minus 3. Okay. So like I said, you need to look at your flip book, go to the last page, the orange page, and there's steps to follow to help you with these equations. So on the back here, let's go to the back. When we start looking at number 10 and 11, now we're talking about perpendicular. So that's an opposite reciprocal slope. Just going to abbreviate that, which means we have to flip the number and change sign. Okay. So the slope on this equation is a negative 1/5. The perpendicular slope would be actually positive 5. So we're using this slope and the point in point slope form. Okay, so that basically means, sorry, this would be, I guess I can start over here, y plus 2 equals 5 parentheses x plus 2. Now, on a problem like 11 here, perpendicular again, this is in standard form. The ax plus by equals c. So to get the original slope, this would be negative 5 over 6. But the perpendicular slope, negative 5, is a flip and change the sign. So this is the slope we should be using in our point slope form. All right, so on this back here, we have 13 and 14. I'm going to say skip. We're going to get to this. We're going to do this one in class. But we haven't talked about a perpendicular bisector yet. That's our last part of the unit before our test. And so there's a couple things we have to do. We still have to do the perpendicular, which is our opposite reciprocal slope. Okay, I can do the original slope here of the CD using the slope formula, but we haven't talked about how to get the bisector yet. Okay, a bisector means it goes through the midpoint, so we would need to know the midpoint formula. So I'm going to talk about that the next day in class, because the formula basically is x1 plus x2 over 2 and y1 plus y2 over 2. We're taking the average of the 2 points. So yeah, so don't worry about this because we're going to use the point, we're going to figure that point, midpoint, and we're going to figure that perpendicular slope, and then get back to point slope form. So it's not a lot more. It's just, it takes some practice. Okay, so don't worry about 13 and 14. Just make sure we get 1 through 12 done. This needs to be in the tray before you leave. All right, thank you guys.